Okay, so sorry about the late start. So this this start, let us discuss uh, about process sync ups, tracking, like how do you want our Brigade uh, to actually track Jira tasks, like what kind of sync up do you want to have, something like weekly meeting or bi-weekly meeting and stuff like that. So for that, I'll just share what I have currently in Jira. So I just opened 4 epics uh, for whatever task that we have for case release. And then I also created a label, Brigade Infrastructure, uh, under which all the epics or user stories that we do as part of this Brigade would be lined up. That'd be okay? Okay. And
so I think the only comment was we're trying to keep epics to a minimum.
okay.
So we probably want to, I think code basis aggregation is big enough, but some of the other ones just try to collapse.
So you wanna, except for this, you wanna squeeze every other epic into a single one?
We can.
So we decided that we want long-running epics, like few long-running. What's the epic rationale?
I think at one point we wanted feature-based.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice if we were feature-based. I think the problem is we haven't fully migrated over, and so part of it is you've got the quasi-component-based ones, which means there isn't a lot of them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to add 4 new epics versus all the other ones is like one component with
I don't care.
Even me, but
some of these are they epics or stories?
I mean, this
Well,
code
so largely speaking, I think you could break things up into one is the disaggregation of the ONOS.
yeah, that is going to go on and on until you figure out a way to
That's
segregate.
sort of like a large task that's gonna have a large story that's gonna have a lot of tasks.
Yeah.
Then another one is going to be to complete the process of migrating from Maven to Buck.
Yeah, that is
or,
form of 7. Yeah, that is there.
or for the, I guess for the main build process, right? And so there's a few tasks that need to be done, like building a few things for Buck, and there's going to be some tasks around deleting some stuff. I mean, this is something that's going to have a lot of sort of stories, so the stories tasks associated with it.
Okay.
And it's probably going to take
How about this?
some bit of time. This one is sort of a cleanup and migration of a lot of the freestyle jobs we have in Jenkins to pipeline. So again, it's something we want to complete, but it's not really, like there's a lot of freestyle jobs that we have. There's a lot of tasks around getting the pipeline stuff working, building the modules. The documentation stuff, which I think is probably the most nebulous. I don't know if you want to. I mean, you could theoretically collapse a lot of this stuff, right? You could say, you know, code base and test evolution or something, right? And there's going to be some tasks in there related to Buck and Palm obsolescence. There's some tasks that are going to be related to pipeline, and there's some tasks that are going to be related to code base disaggregation, right? So you could collapse those three into one thing if you wanted, but then it might be more difficult to understand.
Each type is for what?
Yeah, the repo stuff is that. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's some stuff around repo that requires, you know, Buck or Palm obsolescence activities to take place, and it might be easier to track the whole thing together. I don't think it's going to be like an infinite amount of tasks with lots of people, so I mean, we could, yeah. I could see it both ways. I don't really care which way we go.
So that is neutral vote. So.
And what do you have a preference?
Yeah, my preference would be just like
to have 4.
Yeah, I mean, probably I'm okay to squeeze these two into one, but it's probably, I mean, I'm new to your process flow, so whatever you say, I'll follow.
Well, for example, giftbook documentation, are we going to put in,
Because we don't know like how many stuff we're gonna convert from wiki to Gitbook, so probably each one can be a different style.
I mean, we can start with it for now.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about it.
Okay. So you're fine with this approach?
Start with
At least for now.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so I just created this epic, and then I have one one story as of now, just for the sake of having a story. So probably I mean, I have a list of action items, so probably I will go back and I will again try to refine these user stories and you know, tag it responsible and also put them under the sprint. But do you necessarily want these user stories tagged to a sprint, or you're okay if, because as per Thomas, except this form obsolescence, all other activities can happen anytime. It doesn't necessarily to be tagged to a sprint to release.
Well, you're going to under stories, and then for each of the sprints, I think you guys will plan what will be in each sprint.
Yeah,
Right.
that is there. But as for Thomas, except for this form obsolescence, all other activities are nice to have for K-release, but it is not necessary.
Yeah, so they would just be in the backlog. So all the stories would be in the backlog, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. So my question is, do you want all other items like this, lot of experimentation of this pipeline or repo or the work that you're doing for documentation also to be, what is it, scoped or tracked for K-release?
Also, okay, there's a couple of different things here, right? One is there's a roadmap that we have for the various ONOS releases, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, one of the roadmap items this Brigade could introduce is the obsolescence of the POM for a K-release timeframe, right? And a migration over to Buck as the sole build tool for building the core. So that's sort of from a roadmap perspective. Now, we also run these sprints, right? Or for ONOS project, we run sprints where you have 2 or 3 week blocks of time where you plan the activities for a group of people. And typically those sprints, because a lot of the features we do are, there's some components that are related to release, but some of the times the activities get pulled into the sprint are not necessarily related to the release, right?
Oh, okay.
So the sprints are kind of a way of organizing the group's planning and work. Okay. Right? So you have a discussion about, okay, well, what do we need to get done? Some of those things are going to be for the release. Some of those things may be exploration tasks or investigation tasks, whatever, right? The sprints are kind of a mechanism for organizing work. Okay. Then, we enter the sprint with the task that we've scoped in for that period of time. And then we have periodic meetings, whether it's a bi-weekly meeting or a weekly meeting or whatever, where we can talk about people's progress, see if there's blockers, find out if people can help in certain ways. Okay. And then at the end of the sprint, we take a look at what's been accomplished, move all that work into completed, and then go through a process of scoping in the next set of work. So we call the sprints Kingfisher Sprint 1, Kingfisher.
That's why I got confused.
Right. So yes, they're sprints that are sort of targeted in the Kingfisher time frame, so to speak, but it's not necessarily
For
only work that's
release.
going into Kingfisher.
Okay.
Maybe Yen disagrees with me, but whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm good now.
Okay. So I think what would make sense is if we can have our own. If you go to Agile, right? And then on a Scrum board. And then go to backlog.
Here?
On the top right. So you currently have the UI label selected, but if you take that one off and look at, do we have one for, do we need a label for the infrastructure brigade? But anyway, there'll be some label there for the infrastructure brigade, so we can filter based on the tasks for that. And then we can have a sprint here. So yeah, there's platform sprints, GUI, deployment, right down,
Still down?
RTC.
Scroll back up.
Backlog?
There.
Ah, okay.
There you go.
Okay.
So we can pull work into the sprint.
Okay.
When the sprint gets started, then that work can be tracked using the active sprint tag. We can see what's open, what's in progress, what's completed.
Okay.
And then at the end of the sprint, we can talk about what we accomplished, and then in the next planning session, we'll pull more work from the
This is
backlog.
what you typically do during a sprint planning meeting. Like you just see the backlog and decide what you want to go to in a sprint. Then just go set for a sprint.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. So if we put a label up in the top, which is build and package brigade or something, then it'll filter out the backlog view.
Is this how you will add a new label?
There might be a way you can type it in. I don't know. Try label : or something. No, I don't know what this class is doing. But do you see how there's like deployment brigade? You can click on that one, for example. And now if you scroll down to the bottom, well, there's no issues in the backlog. Great. Work on brigade?
You will be having some. At least there should be some of my issues there. No.
Try unclicking the other ones.
Okay.
No. As you have two selected.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe those are broken.
So bug in Jira?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so if we have a tab like that, then you can click on the build and package tag. And then it'll look at all the issues that have a label. We can decide which of those are priority, pull them into the sprint.
Okay. So how to create a label? Okay.
I think whoever owns the board has to do it.
Okay.
I don't know who owns the board. Yen and Thomas. So you have to bribe Yen to add a label for you.
She's here.
Anyway, whatever. That can be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that makes sense. That we'll follow the ONOS sprint cadence,
Okay.
and then just before the planning meeting, figure out what makes sense to scope in for that period of time.
So how many sprints are there for KDB?
We're currently in number 3, 2,
For KDB?
4.
We are in second sprint. Okay. So still have 2 more sprints to make the form of service work.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we wanted to get it into K release.
Don't we?
Yeah, we did.
We usually consider the third feature.
Yeah, so
So one sprint is for 2 weeks or 3?
sorry?
Arthur?
I was asking, one sprint is for 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Duration of the sprint?
Usually they're 3 weeks, but occasionally they're 2.
Okay.
But if there's not enough time, then it ends up being 2 weeks.
Okay.
sometimes we have something like almost build or something that
ONOS or so.
ONOS or something that takes a week away. So.
Yeah, to answer your question, it is 3 weeks, Alexis.
Okay. And K release is expected at the end of May, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll take up this action item to actually refine the user stories and tag them to a responsible and then put them under the sprint board.
Okay. So yeah, we'll use Jira as our
Tracking tool.
bug and story tracking tool.
Okay.
We'll figure out the epics. That makes sense. We already have the label defined. We'll get a little button for filtering on that label.
Okay.
We'll use the standard almost 3-week sprint cadence for planning work.
Okay.
In terms of sync ups, do you think it makes sense to have a weekly call?
Yeah.
Bi-weekly call, daily call, hourly call?
Let us all come together and work in Menlo Park.
Weekly should be
Weekly? Okay.
maybe, I mean, if we don't have much to be discussed, okay, we can just discuss it by 10 minutes. But
Okay.
bi-weekly, if we cancel it again, then we need to meet after another 2 weeks.
Okay.
I prefer weekly.
Okay. Alexis, do you have any other preference other than weekly?
I'm thinking about bi-weekly because we have meetings in for the teaching brigade, and currently we are also preparing for a meetup in Paris. So maybe in the beginning, can we? What do you think about bi-weekly? Like once in 2 weeks?
So I guess every other week is okay, but what we've found is that
If it is cancelled, then
well, so one thing is if it gets canceled, then it becomes a monthly call, and sometimes these cancellations occur. The other thing is, it just requires people to be a little bit more disciplined about reaching out on like the mailing list if they're blocked.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we could just do like it doesn't necessarily have to be a call. It could be a weekly
chat
check-in
or slash.
check-in on a mailing list or something. How are things going? But I think like ultimately, especially for the short-term work items like almost lessons, it'd be good if people were kind of
Constantly
in touch more frequently than every other week. But like I said, it doesn't have to be a call. So
Yeah,
it's you guys.
Yeah, so maybe we'll start with a week and then we'll see if we are if we are finding that there is no diff in actually talking on a weekly basis, then depending on the case we will move to a bi-weekly call.
Okay, no problem.
If for any call that you are not available, then probably you could provide an offline update or just post an update in the mailing list. That will also be fine.
Okay, it's fine.
Is that on the bridge?
Yes, it's okay, no problem. Just weekly.
Okay, yeah. So, so which day the week you guys prefer? And also the time. So you're the one who suggested for the weekly, so that answer should come from you.
You're asking me?
No, I was asking Venkat.
Okay.
For us,
You just propose some time. Let us see if Alexis is okay.
9 in the evening, IST. They should be, Monday should be fine because we can start with the week.
Okay.
And then we wind up weekly and then start. So Monday 9 o'clock IST should be maybe a Sunday.
Sunday 8:30. Yeah. Let us move to middle of the week.
Maybe. Should be the Wednesday.
Okay.
So it becomes Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning.
No.
Right.
It's Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning
8:30.
8:30 will be
Yeah,
there.
so it's Wednesday evening.
Yeah, Wednesday evening.
So that would be like 10 p.m. is 7, 10 a.m. is 7 p.m. there, PST. So 8:30 a.m. is like what?
France, right?
Yeah.
So we're in
4, 9, 10, then 12, 1.
That is in Central?
4.5 hours difference.
that. So we're currently in Pacific Daylight Time.
Yeah.
Arizona is in Mountain Standard Time all year.
Okay.
So currently we're in the same time zone.
Okay.
For 6 months we're in the same time zone, and for 6 months we're in one hour apart.
9 will be
Okay.
there.
At least for 6 months that is planned.
4:30 in the evening for Alex.
Would that be okay, Alexis? 4:30 p.m. Wednesday.
You mean 11 p.m.?
No,
4:30
in the evening.
4:30 in the evening. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, then let's reach like Wednesday 9 p.m. IST. That will be 8:30 a.m. PST and 4:30 p.m. Paris time. Okay.
And it's on Monday, right?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So hang on, I have to confirm on Wednesday. I thought it was on Monday.
Okay.
Yes.
So other than Monday and Wednesday, what do you prefer?
Yeah. Wednesday is okay. Is okay Wednesday.
Wednesday is okay. Okay. Fine.
Yes.
How long a slot do you want?
1 hour is enough to start with. Yeah.
Okay. I'd probably prefer if we could do it at 9:30 Indian.
Yeah.
So 9 o'clock here.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Maybe 5 for Alex.
5 p.m. okay, Alexis?
Again.
No, the
5
earlier time was 4:30. Now we are moving half an hour on the way. So it's like 5 p.m. Paris time.
It's not possible because at that time I'm still working because I finish around 6. So
6 is
something
10 p.m. here.
Sorry?
10:30 for them.
Yeah,
I think I mean the slot time which can work for me is between 7 to midnight. 7 p.m. up to midnight Paris time.
11:30 for us. It'll be late. Yeah.
That's really late for you guys.
Yeah. 7 is 11:30 India time, Alexis. That wouldn't be possible.
This is the world's problem.
Yeah, it's the world problem.
So 9 o'clock won't be good for you. 8:30 won't be good for you. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for me, I prefer not to, but it's okay. Well, 9:30 or 9 here and 9:30 for you guys would be.
Sounds like
But Alexis can't make it regardless, right? He can't make it. No, he was thinking we were talking about 4:30 Pacific time.
I see. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Alexis,
Yes.
would 5 p.m. Paris time would be okay for you?
5 p.m. 5 p.m. cannot work for me. 6 p.m. cannot work. But 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
No. 7 is a no go for India. So it'll be between 4 to 7.
4 to 7.
Yeah. So pick any time between 4 to 7. That's what. Before 7, after 7, we're not going to take.
So okay. So that would be between 6 up to 7. But I'm afraid I will be sometimes.
10. 10 minutes we can
Yes.
make it.
No, from 6 to 10, because it's 1 hour, you said, right?
Yeah.
So from 6 to 7 p.m. Paris time, that can work.
Okay. 6 is like our 10:30 or 10?
10:30.
10:30. Okay. 10:30 is
9:30 for you.
9:30 for you. Okay. So Wednesday 10:30 p.m. IST.
Oh, so we have the brigade call on Wednesday at 10 Pacific, right? So we could do
Thursday.
No, we could do before that call if you want. If you said 9:30, right? And it depends on if it's a half an hour meeting or an hour meeting, right? Because the thing is, normally, like, it depends on how you want to run the call, right? Like normally a sync up call can be like, it can be like 15 minutes, right? Unless there's something big to talk about, right? For something bigger, maybe it takes, like if there's a topic or, you know, some results or something of, yeah, if there's more detailed discussion, maybe it's longer, but.
Yeah, I think that can be taken up offline or even in the
So
meeting.
the other thing we could try to do is we could say that we have a Slack group.
Yeah.
And on Wednesday, by some time, just post an update.
Yeah.
On the Slack group, or maybe, yeah, whatever, Tuesday and Thursday or whatever, just say, you know, post an update on the Slack group and, you know, you can ask for updates. We'll go through them, and then if there's something where, you know, I need help or whatever, then we can just have more impromptu meetings that are scheduled between the parties that are involved, right?
Yeah, that'll be good, yeah.
Because it just seems like with the different time zones and stuff, it's maybe.
Yeah, so what you're proposing is let's have half-hour call and then just go over the items that are posted on the Slack. If there are some items that need prolonged conversation, that could be taken up offline.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then it will be 10:30 to 11 our time, 9:30 to 10 your time.
Okay.
And it will be like 6 to 6:30 Paris time. Alex?
6 to 6:30 Paris time. Yes, it's fine.
Yeah, so the idea here is that we are going for a half-hour call just to go over the items. I mean, the idea is to use the Slack group as much as possible to share some offline updates or post some questions or the points that you would like to discuss during the call. And during the half-hour call, let's just go over the stocks that are there. Yeah.
So 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 6:30 Paris.
And it will be 10:30. 10:30. No.
And
10 India time.
Okay, it's fine.
But 10, yeah, correct. 6 to 6:30.
Like 10:30 to 11. It will be 10 Pacific time.
No, it's 10 to 10:30.
10 to 10:30 Pacific time.
India time.
India time.
PM.
Paris is 3.5 hours or 4.5 hours.
3 hours, 3.5 hours. Between us, right?
Can you go back to the tab and add India just to make sure that okay. All right.
it's fine. The first one is correct.
Okay. So 10 a.m. this guy is 7 p.m.
Well, we're talking about 9:30, right? 9:30 Pacific, which is 6:30, which is 10.
Yeah. This look right?
Yeah, I think this is the idea for me. If it is like this.
Okay. Yeah.
6:30, okay.
9:30, 6:30, 10. I think this is good.
Okay.
That's the hardest thing out of the way. Do you have daylight savings time?
No.
It's the same all.
That's good.
Yeah,
It really is.
Okay. Just like that, we're on schedule for a care release deep dive. Before you do this, you just want to make sure the time zone is set properly.
Yeah. Should I got the invite?
Yeah, shut up. Maybe.
Yes.
Okay. This is done.
I added the filter.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
And then I think just some Jira best practices, right? Make sure when you have a story, affected version is whatever release. And then story points, we have guidelines for how many story
Yeah.
points.
Fibonacci series 1358. The story points on the Fibonacci series.
And then don't use a
Okay.
because that's the whole print, so try to scope it smaller.
Okay.
Alright, but we have an association of the story points to time frame so
Okay.
that it's consistent
Mm-hmm.
across the whole board.
Okay.
So I can send that out.
Sure. Yeah.
And then there's version, and then that's it. So if you look under version,
But then why I'm not seeing any of the items here as part of this one?
Well, the UI is still selected.
I'll just do that. Still on.
What's the filter criteria?
label, you haven't labeled your story.
Yeah, I have labeled.
No.
No, I did. No.
So I filtered on the label. So the stories would have to have the label.
There, this label.
This is the epic. Yeah, epics don't show up in the,
on the
in
stories?
backlog. Yeah, it's only the stories and bugs that show up in the backlog. Labels.
Okay. So just add it to see how it works. So you have used the same label, right? Brigade infrastructure. Mm-hmm.
Do we refresh? Refresh the page.
I did.
Like, that one.
Probably it's just happening only for you.
I'll check mine.
I should have kept it.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me either.
Yeah, it's probably for you. Okay. Will work. So I think we can just go ahead with Bazel exploration because I mean I think we have a plan in place. We have all the action items there, and then we know how to track. I mean, we have already spoken how to track it in Jira. We are all set for the track.
Yeah. So,
Unless if Alexis or Venkat have some specific questions on the plan or the any of the work items that are targeted for case release.
maybe we pull this up. Do you want to go to the go-to meeting? I just took the control.
Sure.
So, some of the notes that I copied from earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for the Palm obsolescence, right, just to go over, you feel comfortable with these, right?
Yeah. I'll look on this one.
Okay. So these are going into Jira, or they will go to Jira?
Yeah, they will. I mean, all these items will move to Jira.
Okay.
At least I won't be converting all of these action items to user story. Probably whatever that we have discussed as an immediate action item. For every every bullet point has one immediate action item. So that I will convert into user story and then I understand it.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I think this is a good place to start. For this one, I don't know if Zach signed up for.
Yeah, Zach
Okay.
signed up for repo.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good first step. For documentation, I think you're okay.
Yeah. So documentation, the first step is to reach out to the teaching brigade, also write a story and then put it up in a dev mailing list asking for their opinion. Then compile that opinion and then probably we can go from there.
Sure. For the Jenkins stuff, it sounds like Alexis has at least
Already started
some started stuff yesterday.
So Alex,
there's
good
one-
with the 3 points, right?
Sorry?
You're good with the 3 points that are put up in the Jenkins heading, right? Or do you have any questions or clarifications?
Yes, I have a question on the second, the patch set validation. What did you mean by this?
So
I mean-
I think that you have actually refactored Ray script that it works perfectly fine, and then the next step would be is to hook it up with the Gerrit patch set process. So whenever somebody is actually trying to submit a patch set, instead of taking the freestyle job route, it will take the pipeline route that you have just completed in the first step.
I didn't catch it very well. So you mean that whenever there is a submit of a patch, that Jenkins will automatically connect to Gerrit and run a build?
Yeah. So the idea would be that we'll leave the freestyle job in place, and then we have a second job that's a pipeline-based Gerrit validation job, and then we can have a second Jenkins machine vote whether the job has succeeded or failed. And then when that job works reliably, we can turn off the freestyle job.
Yep.
Okay. So the freestyle job will be temporary, will stay temporary. Then once
we'll leave it there as is. And then once we have the pipeline-based job that does Gerrit validation, we can turn off the freestyle job.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
So until we have the pipeline job ready, we'll have this freestyle job running. Probably this can be a backup. And once we are sure that this pipeline job works for sure, then probably we can make that move.
Okay. And what about on the third one? The STC patch will be first removed in the first step. Later it will be added. So have you explained what the program was offline? I asked one. Why don't you explain it? Is it included in the video you posted on YouTube?
Yeah. So Brian took us through the Warden stuff in the overview session, and then he was also taking us through just before the STC session by Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find this on the first day video and second day video.
Okay, then I will do it. Then
Again, the third point is I would say the third point is pretty far-fetched. So like adding the STC part as part of Gary trigger is just nice to have, but definitely not a requirement as of now.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't have it today, so it's okay if we don't have it, but it would be sort of the next action item, next concrete action item, right?
Yeah. So at least for now, at least I would say for K release, if we could make the prototype into a much more stable code, the first point, I think we are good there. At least till May end, we wouldn't be worried if we have if you don't have 2 and 3, right?
Well, 1 and 2, right?
1 and 2, okay. So you want to target 1 and 2 before May?
Well, so yeah, 1 first, get it working, and then 2 is plug in Garrett.
Okay.
To have a trigger, right? So those 2 steps should be.
Let me make sure that I understand that to make sure that 1 and 2 are there before the end of May, right?
Yeah. So 1 and 2.
So again, we have the jobs in place today for doing validation, right?
Yes.
If this does not happen before the end of May, it's
not going to affect much.
It's not like this gets built into the release, right? It's
that's what I'm
something
saying.
that's somewhat orthogonal to the release, right? And this is what Thomas was saying.
Yeah.
You know, we can, whether it's this release or next release or the following, you know, any release we want that we validate this way is fine. So I think we want to try to get it done, but it's not necessarily tied to the time frame of the next release.
Yeah, but at least for tracking purpose, since the sprints are actually back to a release, so.
Well, so yeah, from the perspective of, you know, timing purposes, yeah, it would be good if we could get number 1 working in the first sprint and maybe number 2. And then if not, then the next sprint we can do number 2.
Yeah. I mean, there is no some kind of focus here to bring all the 3 points before May. But again, just start working on 1. It will be good if you could finish both 1 and 2 before May.
That is fine. That is fine. Then the Open Jenkins question, these are the one we are going to consider to see how we will develop them in the next sprints, right? What was the purpose to put this question here?
I think the purpose here is to just brainstorm. I think once you finish the first bullet point, probably you will be more familiar with how pipelines work and what are other nitty-gritty details of how pipelines can be used. So whatever script Ray has put up, it is more or less like a prototype. So he might have missed something, or probably you can actually find some more useful plugins to make much more robust. So once you are there, then you'll be able to find answers for these 3.
All right. That is fine.
These are just kind of things to think about. They could be explicit stories for investigation, or they could just be answers you come across along the way.
Yeah, I guess I will be contacting you through Slacks or even the Brigade mail if I encounter any problem.
So on the release process,
So Ray, what do you want to do for this coming release? Do you want to run the process? Do you think it'd be useful to have someone from the Brigade tag along for the process to kind of understand more from a nuts and bolts level what things look like?
Well, there's going to be you know, basically what we've been doing is in sprints we do a beta, then we do a couple of RCs, then we do the major build. So there'll be some of that going on. There seems to be. The question is it worthwhile for someone to see that in action? I don't know.
That's kind of up to you guys, isn't it?
And kind of sort of logistically, how would we do that? Since the build still is, you know, on someone's laptop.
So I mean, yeah, I don't know what you want to take ownership of. I mean, I think that the thing is, like, we could continue to use the same process that we've used for as many more releases as it takes, right?
Probably we will take the first attempt. Like, let us try to come up with a documentation of the current release process.
Okay.
The first step.
And then I'll just put a note here. If it would be helpful, can tag along with Ray.
The other option, which is a little more involved, would be to look into, as part of this release, getting Jenkins. Not in any automated fashion. So take the script that I have, figure out how to parameterize it with the branch and all the other stuff, and then just have a way of pushing a button on Jenkins so that we're at least freed up from having to do it locally.
Right. So I guess the question is whether we want to do that ourselves or whether we want to have the Brigade take that on.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think, well, yeah, perhaps if there are cycles that the Brigade has and they want to start investigating the release process, inventorying what we have based on what we talked about this morning would be a good place to start. And if there's sort of confusion or you want to see it in action, possibly tagging along via Google Hangouts or something with Ray, so that, you know, you can kind of see each step along the way, could be a good place to kind of to collect some more data.
Okay. Fine, yeah.
And yeah, the goal would be not necessarily to run, you know, it on your laptop eventually, but, you know, figure out ways to do this too.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good here.
Great. So yeah, it would be good if, you know, for the TST today, you could sort of describe at least the areas that the Brigade is going to be tackling,
Okay.
and then maybe the immediate steps that the Brigade is going to be taking, just because this does affect like a wide swath of the project, right?
Okay.
So, you know, describe, okay, for documentation, here's what we're looking into, this is the concrete steps we're taking for the segregation of the code base, this is the steps we're going to take as part of the exploration. For palm obsolescence, this is what we're planning to do, just so the community at large has some visibility. Okay, good. So I guess the next thing we have, the only thing we had left to sort of talk about was Bazel.
Yeah.
But I mean, I didn't prepare anything per se, so it would be more of like a free-form discussion, maybe describing, you know, my ideas on the topic. But before we spend some time on that, do we have any more like other pressing topics or issues or things you guys want to talk about? Because I probably have to drop off at about 3:15 for another call, but so we have about an hour left, right, of structured work week, and I just want to make sure that if there's other areas or topics you guys want coverage on while we're here together, we cover those.
I'm just thinking like these are other stuff. Just a second. I mean, you haven't talked about this. Do you want to shed some light on the semantic version?
Oh yeah. Okay, we can do that. Semantic version.
Well, semantic version, right?
Yeah, so the first, just to go through the charter, the first one, we talked about the migration to Buck, making the build fully buildable using Buck, is what we talked about there. Make sure the ONOS SDK can be built and released efficiently. So we talked a bit about the release process as well. Maintenance, build and release process and documentation. Maintenance of documentation from a developer SDK perspective as well as a user perspective. We all covered
the Gitbook discussion that we had.
Development of build, tests, and runtime toolkits for developers. So we talked about the scripts we currently have in place. We briefly discussed opportunities potentially to, convert them to something else. But that's at least we've made that aware. Development and maintenance of the CI process. That's Jenkins. Integrate CI with STC. So we talked about that. Maintenance of the Garrett plugins. We didn't really talk about these.
I mean, we did talk about what, but maintenance, it's like we didn't go over the code and stuff like that.
So I can briefly show you. So there's, I forget whether these are in ON.Lab GitHub. So there's
code 13.
Sorry?
It'll be under your.
Yeah, so some of them's there, some of them's here.
So why is that like that? Or,
I don't know. I just started building them and project. So here's project lock and module owner. The other one might actually be on Garrett.
So assuming that I fix something, so should I have to upload?
Well, I'm perfectly happy transferring ownership of these to a different area. I just literally started on them there.
Okay.
So because it was easiest, but I could definitely transfer them. The stats one I wouldn't worry about because that's like an integration with Luca's database stuff. But for module owner and project lock, so project lock code is here. It's a pretty simple thing. With Garrett, you define a module. This is how you register the plugin. So in this case, what we do is we block merges. So this is the merge validation listener API. We lock this validator. And so this validator basically gets called on pre-merge, and we check to see if someone's locking it. Then we also have some commands that can be used to list the locks, unlock. So pretty simple project. If it needs to,
will get built into a jar file.
This gets built into a jar file and then installed on the Garrett machine.
How to do that?
How to install it?
Yeah.
So you build it. I think is this built using Maven? It might be. So it's built using Maven.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you get the jar file, and then you basically run something like. Usually the way I deploy it is like cat, like foo.jar, whatever the jar name is, to SSH -p 29418 Garrett.onosproject.org. I think it's Garrett plugin install name foo dash, something like that.
Okay. Is anybody using a REST API?
Sorry?
Somebody will be listening inside Garrett.
And this is supposed to be foo.jar. Great. So it doesn't obviously work because there's no foo.jar, but the point is that this 29418 is the Garrett server port that it's listening on for like clone requests and pushes and stuff. There's a special Garrett command access that you can use if you just type in Garrett after that, and the plugin subsystem, and then install, right? So there's like this whole command line access thing that you can see, and this is how we use stream events. So it's a it's a SSH-based interface, and there's a plugin package here, right? So plugin. So you can list the plugins.
Anybody who has this gated access can be able to do it, or?
No, you need admin, but if it makes sense for someone who's going to be maintaining plugins to have admin, we can. There's also this staging Garrett that we have for if you want to just mess around with a Garrett installation. We have this Garrett demo, and if you guys want admin on this to like mess with plugin development or whatever, I've added it.
Okay.
Yeah. I can do that. Okay. So that's the project lock is sort of the smaller one. There's also the module owner one, which is a bit more code. But this one basically listens to merge events, so it figures out like on merges whether the person has module owner rights or not. It adds a menu. It listens to change events to put module owners onto the review. And then I forget what the usage data listener is for. What do with this? Oh, this was just an experiment. I don't think this is actually log data for testing. And then it also registers an HTTP module to show the module owners.
Okay.
So, we could go through this more if someone is interested in kind of adding to it. I mean, one easy sort of quick win would be plugins, info, project list, module owners. So like making this easier to read or something, possibility. But yeah, that code is in these two repos, the module owner and project lock. And like I said, I'm happy to move these to ownership somewhere else. My goal originally when I started writing these was to upstream them to Garrett. So if they're upstream to Garrett, then
Usually like
Garrett
a proper
authoritative repo. So that was the plan really. So anyway, so yeah, that's that. Maintenance of the shared cells warden. We talked about the code for that. I don't think we have any immediate action items.
Yeah.
There may be some action items that emerge related to
next generation of
getting STC running as part of the build.
Okay.
Right. Investigate how to disaggregate the code base. Yeah, we did that. Talk about repo.
Yeah.
Develop maintenance of ONOS archetypes. We didn't really talk about this, but basically we have these archetypes for like basic apps, CLI-based apps, web apps, etc. Yeah, we probably could use some discussion here, but if we want to have that discussion, we can go grab Thomas because he's probably he has more feelings about this.
Okay.
Deprecation and removal of the legacy build framework. Yeah, we talked about that, and that's the POM obsolescence. The last one, moving artifact versions to follow semantic versioning. So, semantic versioning. So there's this idea in sort of software releases that these version numbers have more meaning than just arbitrary digits. And the sort of key here is that major minor patch or major minor revision, people call it different things, and then sometimes you have a fourth field, the build number. But the idea here is that you increment a major version when there are incompatible API changes. So if you change the semantics of an API, you add new calls, remove calls, etc., in non-backwards compatible ways, you increment the major number. Minor number would be when you added new functionality, but you've not necessarily removed or changed the old functionality. And then the patch number is when things are fully compatible. It's just a matter of fixing errors in semantics. And the idea is for ONOS, we've largely just left the major number constant. We've rolled the minor number for our quarterly releases, and then the patch number is like the bug fixes. But it's really like we should shift everything to the left one, because often in ONOS there are incompatible API changes that occur. We've tried to cut down on that, but it still occurs. So we need to think about, okay, is it time to roll the major number? For the releases that happen, oftentimes there are new functionality that are added in addition to bug fixes that are happening. So really, we should be rolling the minor. Okay, Alexis, we'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Right.
Bye-bye.
For the minor number, for these revisions that we do, the patches that we do, really should think about rolling minor numbers. And then for patch numbers, I mean, sometimes we will roll that, and sometimes, you know, is it a minor or is it a patch? But I guess the point is that the reason to go through this semantic versioning process is that systems like OSGI that do dependency management, it's possible that you may want to upgrade like ONOS API, for example, and they have to answer the question, can I link this application against the new version of ONOS API? And so for now, we're pretty permissive. We don't actually lock things down to versions, but in the manifest that you build, you can lock it down and you can say, like, I'm okay within this major version numbers or this range of major versions, or I need a specific minor patch or whatever, or better than this minor version, but later is fine. So if we actually obey semantic versioning, then we can start to use some of the OSGI constructs, which will help in how we link our sort of dependencies, apps, whatever, against the API versions. So yeah, we've talked about semantic versioning several times. Like, it's come up in TST multiple times. We haven't taken any concrete steps towards that. But I think if anything, the action item here would be to just read this sort of semantic versioning guidelines and provide a proposal, some concrete action items that could be taken, and there may be some tooling that we could have that might help.
So you wanna enforce semantic versioning of the APIs, or on the the plugins, or on the apps?
It would be on the APIs,
The core APIs?
core APIs.
Okay.
And it could trickle down into core implementations and the apps.
Okay.
But yeah, it's also a question, I guess. The question on versioning in general is, you know, do we want to permit the sub repos to be versioned independently, or do they have to have the versions of the project?
On the disaggregated code or in the current code?
On the disaggregated code. In the current code, I think it makes sense that everything has the same version, but in a disaggregated world, do we permit versions to evolve separately? Like, for example, if an app makes an incompatible change to an API, can the app roll its version, its major version, without having to roll the major version of the platform? That probably makes sense. So maybe I'll just put over here.
Yeah, that can be one action item. Probably not that, but
versioning. What semantic versioning recommendation, and what do version numbers look like in multi-repo world? Okay. So yeah, that's more or less what we meant by the artifact versions to follow semantic versioning. Would be more aggressive in pursuing semantic versioning rather than just have meaningless versions. Because if we're going to have the versions kind of like we do today, we might as well use an Ubuntu versioning scheme. 1704, 1706, 1709, right? You know, use a date-based versioning scheme if it's not going to mean anything, right? But for the artifacts, and especially API artifacts, having semantic versioning can really be helpful for developers because it helps them decide whether or not they can safely roll to the next version. Whereas with ONOS,
then you want to have the API versioning enforcement during the component load time in the current?
Yeah, so currently Karaf the default Karaf policy is to permit any newer minor or patch numbers are permitted. So if you built a component against 1.2.3, it'll accept 1.2.4, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, but once it gets to 2 point something, then it will not accept it.
Okay.
And so if you have an app that was built against 1.2.3, and then now ONOS is running 1.5.0, the app can still be bound against the 1.5 code because it's 1.2 better. Now the thing is, in practice, it may not work because the API may have changed. The app may just break. But if we actually obeyed semantic versioning, then if there was an incompatible API change, now the ONOS version would be 2.0, and the app is built against 1.2.3. It's going to say, no, I can't load this app because it's so that's the advantage of doing semantic versioning, is we can get some help from Karaf for code that was compiled against older versions.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that covers most of the, at least giving some context to most of the items in the charter, right?
Yeah. Just give all.
Perhaps with maybe let's grab Thomas if he's available and ask about that, and then we'll talk about Bazel. So Thomas is going to join us a little bit.
Oh, cool.
But in the meantime, so regarding the item that we had on the agenda, which is Bazel, I think that for the Buck-related items, we're really close, and we really need to close the door on Maven. And the easiest way to get that accomplished in the near term is to pursue Buck, and that might be a good option in the long term as well. One of the things I wanted to bring up, though, at least just as a, if nothing more than just an idea to consider, is that going forward, as we start looking at the disaggregated repos and having the builds happening in sort of multiple different styles of workspace. Also, as we have more and more plugins that get built, and as we look at kind of going forward, the fact that we're on a fork of Buck and we'll need to maintain that fork, something that might be worth investigating is whether we can get similar features out of Bazel, and what the work would take to get the Buck build working with Bazel. So we'll close the book on Maven. Now we have the Buck build. The Bazel build files look very similar to Buck files, so the actual process of migrating might be pretty transparent if we wanted to go this route. And then in terms of the API for building plugins, I think it's a bit more robust in Bazel than it is in Buck. So plugins can be built, maintained as small little scripts. They get versioned appropriately, so you could depend on one version of a script in one and another version in another. They've got facilities for doing sort of build execution type environments for textile and stuff. So anyway, I think something that, potentially the action item to take on is what are the long-term maintenance requirements for our fork of Buck? And what's that going to cost us in terms of energy and resources?
Like pursuing the, maintaining fork of work versus moving to a different build system.
Right. So, I think it'd be worth both doing two things. One is investigating, what's the maintenance requirement of Buck going to be in the long term? And do we have someone that's interested in doing that? Versus, that's one bit. The other bit is, okay, well, if we wanted to move to Bazel, what would it take? Well, we have these like 4 or 5 plugins. We'd have to port those to Bazel. Is that port an easy port? Could it be done by just changing bucklet to .bzl, right? Is that it, right? Or is there more, right? I think there's going to be some amount of work because we have these plugins that are, ingrained into the Buck infrastructure with the Buck API. But, what would it take to take the code that's there and just run it in a Bazel environment? I don't know. So I think at least it's worth an investigation to say, what's the maintenance look like? What's the cost of changing to the new system? I think it'll be significantly easier than the move from Maven to Buck, because Bazel Buck, they share a common ideology, ancestor, build ideas, right? And a lot of the developers, if we're wrapping this stuff in scripts anyway, it looks it may look identical. The other question is, from an IDE support perspective, is the IntelliJ support better? Do they have Eclipse support, right? Like in some of the tooling that we've talked about building, maybe we get that for free. I know that, there's Buck IntelliJ plugins, which isn't that good to be honest. There's also a Bazel IntelliJ plugin, which might be better. So anyway, just some food for thought. Didn't really mean to suggest that we rock the build boat again, so to speak. But
I was actually trying something like this, so probably it's worth discussing here. So one is that this.
Do you wanna me to?
I think Alex is left, so just ask.
Okay, but it's a recording, right?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is the other one that I was actually looking, which I have used in the past. So this is again from Google, but I'm not sure if these guys are still using this. So this is nothing but pumping the load across different nodes, compute nodes, and then running the controller on top of all those compute nodes to actually do the compilation. But I'm not sure if this can be leveraged for a Java-based build system. This is one. And then Eclipse OpenLab have a project which actually something like a wrapper or an implementation as part of the setup process in Eclipse. So instead of developer just install Eclipse and then try to download the Git code and then import the form files and then try to build it, they have a wrapper in the model of setup, so that when you just install Eclipse, it'll ask you whether are you going to install Eclipse for OpenLab. If so, it will ask you. OpenLab today follow multiple repo styles, right? So it'll ask you to check if I think they have a video here. Yeah. Yeah. So So
Do they have some pre-configured plugins or something?
Yeah. So they can actually check out projects here. So as part of that project, you could actually select a lot of GitHub projects have this facility, and then they have now included OpenDaylight. So during the Eclipse install process, you could just go to other projects and select OpenDaylight, and then whatever projects you want to select, just go there and check that, and then it will automatically set up your SSH keys, your Gerrit keys, your development environment. It will also install your plugins with respect to the Maven or Checkstyle or Javadoc. Like it actually completely sets up the development environment during the setup time itself. So like once the setup is complete, you're all set to contribute directly to OpenDaylight.
That's pretty cool.
Let me just go there. So you're just asking the install location.
One person.
We don't know the community though.
That's true.
So if you can see here, so after installing Eclipse, it is doing the as part of the post installation hook. It is actually configuring the workspace automatically for OpenDaylight. It has got the Yang ID built in. It's got the Yang editor built in. So it is very easy to actually add a new feature that suppose that we actually open up for the Yang files to be edited online, just as part of the development process, so that you just edit Yang files and then you just press Control S, automatically the Java source will get generated. If at all you're going for that approach, then this helps. So as part of improving developer productivity, I just thought that why not copy that approach here. So like if you're about to actually support Eclipse, then probably this project is worth to look at.
Alright.
Thomas, you want to join now?
Sorry?
Thomas is want to join now.
I can double check this thing again. He's I can sort of start by explaining what we currently have in place in terms of archetypes, where that lives, stuff like that.
You got the ball?
And then, you know, if he comes here, he can tell you about the direction that.
I actually wanted to extend ONOS Create tab to support bug.
Yeah, that stuff is all Maven now.
So that's under, actually.
It's under, yeah.
So, currently we have a form file which describes the archetypes that we have. So we have archetypes that are for, I think this is just basic API. Oh, I think it starts with, what's the simple one? Is the simple one bundle?
This one is bundled.
So what we have here is you kind of have like a Maven project within a Maven project for archetypes. So this one describes the bundle archetype. Within the bundle archetype, you have this sort of resources area, which is then now sort of the new root for that. So there's the basic POM, right, which is just a basic bundle archetype, comes with an ONOS version, some basic dependencies. So this is like the code that you'd run. This is what you'd get out of the archetype create command. And then in the source directory, you get a basic component, right? Basic trivial component. That's what you get when you're starting up. And then you also get your basic test. So then the idea with these archetypes is that there's certain things like, for example, $package is a variable that will get injected. There's some stuff at the top which I think sets the escapes. In the app component, yeah, you get $package. You could theoretically have other stuff that gets injected. There's nothing to say that a Maven archetype can't have a buck build rule, a buck file here, right? Which is the basic buck file for building this thing. You could drop Maven entirely, right, and still use Maven archetypes.
The act of producing can be Maven, but what is getting produced doesn't necessarily be Maven.
Right,
Exactly.
files, yeah.
And so with this one, you have like the API archetype, which can be layered on top of the existing archetype. And this would basically just give you a service, sort of like basically a service interface that can be extended or implemented rather by a component to give other apps the ability to use this one. We have a CLI archetype that can be layered on top. So this one has the basic command. And I think, yeah, it brings along a POM with some more dependencies. There's a REST one, which gives you the web bindings.
So there was one other request in the community to have a driver archetype.
Yeah, so I mean, these archetypes can be added however we see fit. UI1, UI topo overlay, UI tab. So yeah, adding these archetypes is just a matter of sort of creating the high level structure,
and then
with a POM.
playing with the dependencies of what is necessary for that particular use case.
Yeah, and yeah, this is where I kind of hope Thomas could provide some direction. But I mean, if it's just a matter of adding a driver or something archetype, then yes, just figure out what the resources that are required for the driver are.
You take a look at how existing driver code is there, and
then just create an easy to replicate.
It's a easy checking for me.
Yeah, sure. I think with the archetypes, so yeah, to generate
this is done by ONOS create app.
Right, exactly. So ONOS create app underneath calls the Maven archetype tool to do it. So yeah, you can use ONOS create app and then provide the parameters that you want. And then the way that the archetypes are structured is that if you add the API or add a driver or add something else, they just get layered into this thing.
So I added this part here.
Okay.
This one I added.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
And then I added a example tutorial. It's in this one.
Favorite is misspelled, we have to fix that.
Favorite?
Yep, see? Favorite job editor is misspelled.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, if we wanted to, so yeah, I mean, two easy things to do. Adding a driver one would be easy. Also, adding a basic buck file into the archetype resources area would also be a pretty easy thing to do. So I'll add that to our action items.
So except for the one that tag with resources, other things are like as and when we find some time or we find some resources, we could just get it up and done.
Yeah, these can sort of just be backlog items for the Brigade. File to.
Yeah, we're waiting for you.
I have, sorry, I have probably only like 5 minutes, because I've been meeting with those.
Sure.
That's fine. But as far as the of course, one was the archetypes.
I just walked through, you know, how they're laid out, how they're structured, overlay,
Okay.
et cetera. The question is just sort of going forward, what we want to do with them. That's why we wanted to get your opinion.
I think so. This was done primarily for external applications because the way the form are set up for the archetype generated projects are in a way that assume complete independence from ONOS and not including in the hierarchy. So to continue that, I think there is nothing wrong with generating the archetypes like we continue to generate them, but perhaps enhance it so that we also generate bulk files.
Yeah, what is that?
But I think that would be a low priority item, frankly. I think the overall archetype stuff that potentially be just hard and just maintain to make sure that it works.
Okay.
So there's a whole project for how to sort of do an API, how to do implementation of components, how to do a couple of different flavors of UI and REST API, and that's it. And the starting point, and then be loaded on top of each other to produce a combination project.
Okay.
They should continue to work, which means that we need to be able to test them as part of our delivery process. They do present a little bit of an issue with respect to, because it's a Maven-based thing, which assumes that it needs to be published. So at the time of publishing it, you're going to assume a dependency on the API at the time for which it was published. But then if the developers want to generate archetypes against some other different version, let's say a snapshot, it's not really suitable for that. So building your own archetypes is really not that great. It's really should be used for developers who want to just generate a starting point of their own application. I would minimize the amount of effort.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's more or less what we and I gave an overview of how the archetypes are structured within in here. They need to be laid out in order for them to be built.
All right.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
And then another meeting, right? We're having one at 4.
Yep.
TST.
TST, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to bail out from TST early because there's an interview with Ryan, so. So I'll let you, if you wouldn't mind me.
Yeah.
Recording.
So TST will happen in the large room?
In the larger room, yeah. In the larger room.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So I guess it's
Time for wrap up.
on to the wrap up, right?
Okay. So, will it be okay if I just take through okay. So, in the TST meeting, I'll just explain what we did for past 3 days.
Made you the.
Okay. Okay, so in the TST meeting, I'll just try to walk through what is that we discussed for the past 3 days and what are the action items that we have set for ourselves and what is the plan for K release. And that's
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is just the areas that this brigade is going to start making some impact on, and what we expect to have delivered in here this December.
okay.
That'd be good. And I think the reason why we want to do this for this brigade more so than other ones potentially is because some of these action items are going to impact people's workflow. So having a bigger forum for making people aware of that.
Okay. So thanks, Brain, for nice work week. Thanks, Jay.
I'm glad you guys came.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Good for everybody, yeah. It's good to have other people knowing how this stuff works.
Yeah. Looks like you have spilled all your secret softwares, so that we know how ONOS get built.
There's definitely some black magic involved.
I think we are working 3 different partners.
Yeah, that's
Really, ONOS is going global.
Yeah.
That will be a challenge.
It is global, seriously global.